What it do? Dream Team, it's your boy D Neal back with another reaction video, guys. Here we are with 9 must-watch Australian films and TV shows to learn Aussie culture. I'm intrigued to see some of these films and TV shows, and I might react to some of them. But before we jump in, y'all know I need y'all to hit that subscribe button, ring notification bell, get a video a thumbs up so it gets suggested.
So if you're planning to come to Australia, or perhaps you're already here, you're probably going to notice a lot of cultural differences, or you may even have a bit of a culture shock because perhaps you come from a country, like in my case, that's very, very different to Australian culture. So you may take a bit of time to get used to the language, or perhaps to the way Australians behave at work, or different cultural differences that might be a bit hard to relate to. In my case, as a migrant, it was a bit hard to get used to the Australian accent, for example.
Can you do an Australian accent?
So it was a bit of a shock, sometimes not being able to understand. Or yeah, there were some cultural differences that I would have loved to be more familiar with before coming here. So in today's video, I'm going to give you a list of recommendations of Australian TV shows and films that perhaps you may want to watch in order to get a glimpse of the Australian culture. Of course, most of these TV shows and films that I'm going to mention, most of them are fiction, so they're a bit exaggerated, but I do think that they represent the Australian culture very accurately. And I'm going to say one more thing, but I'm going to leave this to the end. Okay, let's get started with my list of recommendations.
I'm excited. I'm excited because y'all know I love my Aussies. Y'all know I love the chill, laid back Aussies, the friendly, take care of the community Aussies, the not afraid of spiders that's the same size as them Aussies. Y'all know I love them. So what shows we got that represents Aussie culture?
Okay, my first recommendation is to watch Rosehaven. Rosehaven is an amazing Australian comedy set in Tasmania, set in a fictional town called Rosehaven. This comedy tells the story of Daniel, an Aussie guy originally from Tasmania, who has been working in Melbourne, but now he has to return to his hometown, Rosehaven, to run his mother's real estate business. Upon his return, however, he's surprisingly joined by his best friend, Emma, who's been living in Melbourne, but she's now running away from a marriage that didn't last a honeymoon. I highly recommend watching Rosehaven. It's a beautiful, beautiful feel-good TV show about town life in Australia. It's hilarious, and you'll also get to see the amazing scenery of Tasmania. Okay, my second recommendation is Utopia.
Okay, Rosehaven. I'm coming. I'm watching Rosehaven. Give me some time and I'll
Utopia
watch it.
is an award-winning Australian TV series that follows the working lives of Australian government employees. I highly recommend watching this TV show. It's one of my favorite Australian TV shows because it's hilarious. You're going to be laughing out loud, and it's basically a satire of Australian government departments and how everything works and how they make all these decisions. And the cast as well is amazing, featuring amazing Australian comedians. So highly recommend watching Utopia. Okay, another recommendation is to watch this amazing TV show called Fisk. This is basically a fast-paced comedy about a lawyer called Helen Tudor Fisk, whose life falls apart and she has to take a job at a suburban law firm specializing in wills. She takes this job assuming that because her clients are dead, she won't have to deal with people. This show is filmed in Melbourne, and I highly recommend watching it because it's hilarious and it's very light-hearted humor, and I think you're going to love it. Another good recommendation
is intriguing. That sounds pretty intriguing.
To watch Upper Middle Bogan. This Aussie TV series follows the life of a high middle-class woman called Beth, whose life turns upside down when she discovers that she's adopted and that her biological parents and family are Bogans. This show came highly recommended by one of my really good Aussie friends, Regan, and I fell in love with it. It's so good, and I think that's when you'll understand the concept or slang word of bogan. It's a really feel-good comedy, and I do think that it represents a bit of the Australian culture, and it's set in Melbourne as well. So if you're planning to come to the city, you will get a bit of a glimpse of what Melbourne is like as well.
Now I gotta watch that one. I gotta watch, because I love the concept of she upper middle class, right? And then she find out she's adopted and her parents are bogans, and so that's completely different lifestyle. Her biological parents are bogus. completely different. That would sound very intriguing.
Another amazing TV
Very
show on my
intriguing.
list is Kath and Kim. This is also an
I've heard about Captain Kim.
winning Australian TV sitcom that follows the life of mother and daughter Kath and Kim and their extravagant and very funny friends. I love this TV show, it's hilarious, and it's basically a satire of Australian and international pop culture. It's a bit old, I think it's from 2002. The humor, of course, is a bit exaggerated, but it's a very, very funny sitcom, and it's an Australian classic as well. Another TV show on my list is Black Comedy. Black Comedy is a hilarious Australian sketch comedy show featuring a cast of mainly Indigenous writers and actors. The show is basically a comedy and parody of Australian television and film that looks at the Australian culture through the eyes of the first peoples of Australia. I highly recommend watching this show to laugh out loud. They make fun of absolutely everyone, and I think it's very important as well because it's going to give you a glimpse of the culture of Australia.
That's also a very intriguing concept.
Another TV show that made it to this list is called After Taste. After Taste is a beautiful Australian TV show that tells the story of an internationally renowned Australian chef whose life falls apart after a series of scandals. He then returns to his hometown in Adelaide Hills and tries to rebuild his reputation with the help of his talented pastry chef, Neal. This is an amazing feel-good TV show that I highly recommend watching to get a glimpse of Adelaide and its beautiful scenery. Another TV show that you should watch, especially if you're an international student, is called Ronnie Tieng, International Student. This TV show tells the story of Ronnie Tieng, a Malaysian international student in Australia. The show follows his experiences as an international student studying law at the University of Melbourne. This show is hilarious, but of course, again, this is fiction, so as you watch
God, how bad was
This show is hilarious, but of course, again, this is fiction, so
God,
as you watch that, don't think that your experience studying here is going to be like the main character, right? I think it's going to give you a nice glimpse as well in what it is like to be an international student here in Australia. My last recommendation is The Castle. The Castle is a classic Australian comedy that everyone will recommend to watch. It basically tells the story of a working class family from Melbourne who fights City Hall after being told that they have to leave their family home to allow for infrastructural expansion. This is an old movie, but yeah, as I said, it's an Australian classic, so it's worth watching. Okay, so these are my recommendations. As you can appreciate, these are all comedies, but I am aware that the list is very limited.
Y'all talk to me about these recommendations. Todd, are any of these shows your favorite one? Would you recommend these shows, or do you have better recommendations? Hit me up in the comment section. I'm very interested.
It'd be impossible to include all Australian TV shows here, but of course, if you're Australian and you have any recommendations, please leave a comment below. And if you want to get started with watching these TV shows, I think you're going to find most of them on ABC iView. You can download the app or check their website, and then some of them I think are on Netflix. And if you are outside Australia, you may want to use the VPN, but that's up to you. And of course, if you are struggling to follow along because perhaps you can't understand the accent, you always have the option to turn the captions or subtitles on. So that's an alternative as well. Okay, now the thing that I wanted to talk about. Neither of the Aussie TV shows and films that I've seen so far, only with a few exceptions, really reflect the original culture of Australia or tell the story of the first peoples of Australia. That is, the traditional owners and custodians of this land. And it's very clear that Indigenous peoples are underrepresented in Australian media. To be honest, as a migrant myself, I really didn't have any idea of the Aboriginal culture of this country. I was watching TV, but I didn't see any content on it. So I think it's very important for us migrants to really understand the history and culture of the traditional owners of this country. I must admit that I'm still trying to learn, and I've been wanting to make a video about it, but I really want it to be as accurate as possible, and I don't think I have enough authority to talk about the subject. So I'm still brainstorming. Potentially I can get someone from the community involved, but I really would like to make a video giving an overview on the history of the traditional owners and see how we can tell their story, so we as migrants, we can become more educated and learn about it. I think that's one of my goals for the upcoming months.
I like that
try
idea.
to make a video about it. So stay tuned, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it really helps you, and if you want to know a bit more about the Australian culture, Australian slang, or what it is like to work here in Australia, I have a full library of videos here on my YouTube channel, so have a look. And please, if you like the video, like and subscribe to keep supporting the channel so I can keep bringing all this free content for you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
That's all we got for this one. You guys got a favorite video suggestion, you can subscribe to Patreon or drop it in the comment section. How to start check. Y'all let me know if I should check out some of these shows. But it's your boy Neal. Out.